The Jewish Channel's Week in Review, what President Obama's upcoming trip to Israel has in store, how these yeshiva students were leading the country on the basketball court, and more of the Jewish news that's changing your world right now in this episode of the Week in Review. Hello and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. President Barack Obama is to receive Israel's Presidential Medal of Distinction due to his, quote, unique contributions to the security of the State of Israel. The award is to be presented to Obama by Israel's President Shimon Peres during Obama's visit to Israel this March. This is the first time a sitting U.S. president will receive the award. The announcement of the award declared that Obama's contribution to the security of the Jewish state is a result of, quote, both further strengthening the strategic cooperation between the countries and through the joint development of technology to defend against rockets and terrorism. The rest of the itinerary for the president's visit to Israel has also been released. Arriving at Ben Gurion Airport at noon on Wednesday, March 20th, the president will be welcomed at a state reception at which Obama, Peres, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will speak. The president will then fly to Jerusalem for a reception at Peres' home. The president will then visit the Yad Vashem Holocaust Museum, where he will lay a wreath in the Hall of Remembrance. He'll then lay a wreath at the gravesite of Theodore Herzl on Har Herzl, as well as at the gravesite of former Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. There will then be a meeting at Netanyahu's residence where the two heads of state and their delegations will discuss key issues, including Iran and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, followed by a press conference. The next day, Obama will visit Ramallah to meet with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas and return to Jerusalem by the afternoon, where he will see a model of the Second Temple period Jerusalem and then a tour of the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Israel Museum, at the last of which the president will see Israel's latest scientific and technological achievements. Then, one of the biggest moments of the trip, Obama will deliver a speech directly to the Israeli public with an invited audience of more than 1,000 Israelis and countless others watching via broadcast. A ceremonial dinner hosted by Peres and then a breakfast with Netanyahu will follow, with finally a visit to a battery of the Iron Dome missile defense system that the United States has helped develop for Israel. Finally, a farewell ceremony at Ben Gurion Airport, from which Obama will depart for Jordan, and a meeting with King Abdullah. The Netanyahu administration has already created branding for the president's visit, including a logo. The name Unbreakable Alliance in English and Brit Amim in Hebrew was chosen, and then a vote was held on Facebook among several possibilities for a logo. Thousands of votes on the social media site made this logo the winner this past Tuesday. Of course, a new government in Israel could be formed any day now based on the results of January's election, and one man it seems clear will not be presiding in a new term is one of the leading hosts of this visit, Israeli President Peres, the nonagenarian who said he'll retire. And now a legendary Jewish politician in the U.S., also serving into his 90s, has announced that he won't seek a new term either. Senator Frank Lautenberg of New Jersey, who served for more than 20 years and whose current term ends when he'll be 91 years old, said he will not run for re-election in 2014. He'd been facing questions about running in light of the announcement by Newark Mayor Cory Booker that he'll be seeking the Democratic nomination in that election. And on the topic of competition for a top spot, Yeshiva University's men's basketball team turned heads this season when it was consistently among the best collegiate teams in the country in three-point shooting for its Division III. Yeshiva actually held the #1 spot for much of the season and finished its regular season this week at #2 out of 407 schools. Meredith Gansman has that story.
They shoot, they score. A lot of three-point baskets. Finishing up their season with the second highest three-point percentage in the NCAA Division III, a 42.8%, Yeshiva University's Maccabees are proving that a student athlete isn't an oxymoron at a Jewish school. Who knew that the Maccabees could be so triumphant even after Hanukkah?
I think people are surprised. It's not the Jewish team that gets to shoot the highest percentage all the time, so the fact that we were able to do that was really cool. I think people saw that and were excited about it.
Junior shooting guard Benji Ritholtz is among the most accurate three-point shooters on Yeshiva University's men's basketball team. And to say that people were surprised to hear about Yeshiva's performance is an understatement. Even ESPN's college basketball reporter Andy Katz tweeted about it, asking, "Who knew?" Although nice tall Jewish boys aren't always known for their skills on the court, this team beat the odds. And at a school teaching a dual curriculum where the combination of Jewish studies and general instruction keep many students in the class for more than 8 hours a day, it's even more surprising. Head coach Dr. Jonathan Halpert who's led the team to more than 400 wins in his yeshiva basketball career, compared his team's freedom to practice with the average college.
The basketball is only the most important thing you do, the few hours you're doing it. And we only do it 8 hours a week, while our opponents are doing it 16, 18 hours a week. They run on the court for 32 hours. We sit in the classroom for 32 hours.
But to succeed as they have, Halpert says their surprisingly good job shooting threes has a lot to do with the team's ability to play well without the ball.
In order to be a really great three-point shooting team, you have to get time and space, and the way you get time and space is by moving well without the ball, and that's what these young men have done this year.
So it's all about strategy to make each three-point shot count. Dovie Hoffman is one of the team's captains.
If you're open, most people are going to make it, and that's what we're doing. That's why we're shooting over 50%. We're taking good shots, and that's what gets it in.
To see more of Yeshiva University's Maccabees three-point shooting, tune into the full broadcast version of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Meredith. Finally, the first ever Jewish ambassador to Israel from the United Kingdom, Matthew Gould, has also served his home country's foreign office in Iran and Asia. He stopped by TJC studios in New York recently to speak about Israel, Iran, the Palestinians, and more. Here are the highlights of that interview. What do you see as some of the issues you're trying to address right now regarding the UK relationship with Israel?
I guess there are three main components. One is Iran, where our countries are working phenomenally closely together, and with the US and others, where we share a very close conception of the threat, and we're a determination to work together to stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. And that, for me, is one of the foundation stones of the UK-Israel relationship. Second is inevitably the Palestinian issue, and people in the UK, as elsewhere in the world, do tend to see Israel through the prism of that issue. At the moment, the peace process isn't where we'd like it to be. It's not moving. And so we've welcomed the stated intention of Secretary Kerry and others in the US to really make it a priority. And then a third area, which is really very important for me, is to build the partnership between Britain and Israel. So we have really exciting initiatives going on to promote tech partnership, to promote scientific collaboration, to build links between British and Israeli universities. And from my perspective as the guardian of the UK-Israel relationship, too much in the past, the relationship's been the sum of all our differences. And for me, there's an opportunity to really build, with total support from our Prime Minister and our Foreign Minister, a very exciting partnership to the benefit of both countries.
Now, on the Israeli-Palestinian issue, we saw, in specific to your job, we saw a lot of turmoil around Europe regarding what exactly ambassadors should be doing in response to new investment in settlement construction.
Yeah.
And what instructions were you given, or what approach was it suggested you take as this has been developing in recent months?
Well, I think I try and give several messages on this issue. The first is a well-known message from my government, indeed all the governments of Europe and most of the governments in the world, which is we believe settlement building beyond the Green Line is first of all illegal under the Geneva Conventions, but secondly, it gets in the way of peace. And the constant stream of announcements of new settlement building saps people's willingness to believe that the Israeli government is really serious when it talks about a two-state solution. Now, that's a problem for several reasons. One, it's a problem because I think the situation in the peace process, frankly, is not great. There aren't talks happening. The level of trust between the two sides is already very low. And we believe that new settlement building compounds that. But I have a particular worry about it, which is in the UK, I see the centre ground of public opinion, parliamentary opinion, shifting slowly but measurably to a position where it's less sympathetic to Israel. So you take the British Parliament, for example, and I talk to a lot of our members of Parliament, and very widely there's a view that the British Parliament is a less sympathetic place to Israel now than it was 5 years ago. I don't think it's just Britain. I think you can see it happening in a number of countries. And for me, that's a worry, because I invest my time, my energy to build up this partnership. And if the centre ground of opinion around the world is starting to shift and starting to become sort of less sympathetic, then I do think that's a problem.
It's interesting because you gave an interview in August in which you said Israelis might wake up in 10 years' time and find out that suddenly the international community has changed and that patience for continuing the status quo has reduced. And it was only 3 or 4 months later that at the UN, at the General Assembly, we saw a significant reduction in the number of countries that were willing to vote with the Netanyahu government on the issue of recognizing Palestinian state, or Palestinian observer member status. That we saw the UK abstain, and we saw a great many European countries abstain, and some of them even vote for it, which surprised certainly Israeli and U.S. leaders.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the UK in that vote actually was very clear. We were very keen that whatever happened should further the prospect of peace, not set it back. So we set out explicitly before the vote our requirements of the Palestinians before we would be willing to vote for. We said that they would have to make clear, for example, that they weren't going to go to the ICC.
The International Criminal Court, which is what's seen by many as perhaps the primary reason for pursuing this status, that they would be able to take Israeli government and Israeli defense leaders to the International Criminal Court.
We said as well that we would expect after any such vote that they would be willing to sit down in negotiations without preconditions. Now, as it happened, those assurances weren't forthcoming, so we didn't vote for the motion, we abstained. But I mean, the vote of European countries, the spread of European countries was quite striking.
Were you surprised?
Was I surprised? I mean, it's consistent with what I'd been saying on one level, which is I do worry that in the absence of progress towards peace, opinion towards Israel is starting to shift. And that's one of the reasons why we believe that making progress towards peace, even under the current very difficult circumstances, is urgent. That there are drivers on both sides, and in the international community that means if we don't start to make progress now, in a few years' time it's going to be even harder still.
You can see the full interview with Matthew Gould under the Weekly News category on the Jewish Channel On Demand on cable. That's all for this week. From all of us here at the Jewish Channel, be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable. Time Warner Cable Channel 528, IO Optimum Channel 291, RCN Channel 268, Bright House Channel 330, Verizon Fios Channel 900, Cox Channel 1, Frontier Communications, and now on Comcast Cable in the on-demand menu under Premium Channels. For more information, visit tjctv.com.